Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Idle Hands, and it's been quite a while since we made a video. So, to be honest, I thought I would never make one again. I don't know, I just kind of didn't feel like doing anything. Anyways, as the game made further developments and as they released more collaboration jobs, so that the interest for a deeper understanding in terms of the damage formula rise. If you've been a member of the unofficial ROM Discord group, you probably would have interacted with such discussions. If you're not a member yet, I greatly encourage you to sign up. I'll put in a link in the description below. You find a lot of helpful members there, and feel free to engage in any of the meaningful discussions. So before we proceed, just probably a brief background. I started playing Ragnarok Mobile, the mobile version, during the beta testing, the closed beta testing for the China version. And then when they released the China server, I played there and then eventually transitioned to the Southeast Asian server. Um, I'm not a strong player, I'm just a casual player. The stuff I have are all average. Um, and when it really comes to strategy or maybe some of the builds, I'm probably not the best person to ask. I do have some understanding on the game formula and how the damage works, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But that doesn't really translate into you doing really good or well in the game itself. Anyways, let's start. So let me get it up. And I'm sorry, I'm not really used to doing these kinds of recordings. Okay, let me put that up there. Okay, so yeah, today will feel a little bit like an online learning session. So this is an introduction on the damage formula. And before we start, I want to thank my fellow Team Leaks members. So we're a group of people who mainly interact within the unofficial Discord forum. So Bacon, Cremacy, Campana, Cerulean Blues, I'm pretty sure you guys know him, Yulb, Editor, Gomu, Mariel, and yours truly, Idle Hands. So um, these group of people mainly do a lot of these stuff out of passion and really concern for the online community. We do a lot of translations. We do a little bit of code digging, comparing files before and after patches and updates. So we kind of know what changed within the game. Stay tuned. There'll be a lot more coming from Team Leaks, and please make sure to support them. I'll put down a link in the description for their respective Facebook pages or YouTube channels. I'm pretty sure not every one of us has one, but I'll put them in the description below. Okay. Also, um, yeah. So this was supposed to be animated, but I had some challenges putting up an animated PowerPoint as my background. So anyway, so I know you've seen some of these images floating around before, and they could be a little bit intimidating and they could be a little bit hard to understand, but they're pretty simple to be honest. All you need is really some knowledge on basic arithmetic and algebra. I think algebra plays the biggest part here, and a little bit of programming knowledge, but to be honest, not it's not really required. Um, just a couple of reminders. I'm not one of the devs. I'm not a professional developer nor a programmer, and I'm not in any way affiliated with XD or Gravity or any of the developers of the game. Um, I also don't know anyone working there, and everything I'll be talking about in this video today will be based on my understanding of the code. So I could be wrong, I could also be right. It's really up to you whether you want to take this by heart, but my personal recommendation is to try to understand it yourself and take everything I say with a grain of salt. Like what I said, I could make mistakes while talking, but primarily within this video, I will do my utmost best to maintain accurate. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is really more on the damage formula, and this will be a little bit confusing, which I probably have to discuss in later videos. But basically, there are two types of damages that you can get within the game. One is an attack damage, something that's caused by an attack, whether a normal attack or a skill attack. The second one is a buff damage, and I know the terminology is a bit confusing, but basically these are damages you can get via a debuff or either via status. So an example would be damage from poison, damage from bleeding. A more popular example, or maybe something that isn't interested about right now, is a skill from the Chronomancers, which is, I think it's called Twisted Time Bomb or Time Bomb. I'm not sure, sorry. But anyways, they work differently. Okay, there are some modifiers, there are some aspects where they're alike, but all in all, they kind of behave in different manners. So today, solely for today, we're just going to talk about attack damage. So, and this may seem a little small, and let me see if I can, if I can magnify this. Oops, sorry, that's fine. Okay, this is it. Magnifying. Okay, there we go. So basically, this is a snippet. This is a snippet of how the damage formula looks like. So every skill or every attack is, sorry, every skill or every attack is actually characterized by a certain cult damage. So if you look deeper into the game, if you look into the skill, if you look into the attack, um, it always references to a particular formula or a particular string of formulae or formula that will allow it to calculate the end damage. So this one is calc damage 28. To be honest, I just picked this off randomly because this one looked very simple. Um, but I'm not exactly sure for which attack or skill this is. But this looked very simple. And to be honest, what we kind of need from here are three basic stuff. So one is a base attack, which you see here. There's a red box here. So base attack, attack final with the green box. And then if I scroll down a little bit, it would be local A. Okay, so all of that. The words you see there are actually either containers or sources, and I'm going to explain what they are later on. But basically, what's happening here, if you look at this closely, is first, this particular formula tries to reference or tries to call all of these functions here. So it tries to call, the property, this property, to pull the player's strength, dex, luck, and attack, um, and so on and so forth. It pulls ignore defense, and never mind if you see ignore defense 1 and 2, it's a topic for a different discussion. Refine, def, fit, so all of that is being pulled by this particular formula because it will use it in one way or another within this particular computation. And then later on, it will try to do the basic operations, such as, figuring out what the value of base attack is, figuring out the value of attack final, and then later on figuring out what the value of A is. So basically, this particular formula tries to compute for the damage of the skill or attack that uses calc damage 28. Okay, by the terminology alone, this is an attack damage, which means afterwards it will, after all of these multipliers here, it will still go through two sets of multipliers, which I will discuss later, before actually, registering the damage that, you will inflict onto a player or a monster. So I know there's a lot to take in, and to be honest, I kind of planned this to be just an introduction um, into all of this stuff. Um, I don't really expect anyone to be able to fully understand how damage is computed right away just by merely looking at this. So you may probably, in the future, we may probably have to do another video explaining each and every parameter, or probably a specific skill. I think that's the best way to go, right? If there's a skill that you're interested in, you can probably send it to me. Contact me in the Discord group, or maybe put it in the comments below, and then just tell me if you want me to make a video of it. Just a heads up. Some of it I may not fully understand, so I probably won't be able to make a video. But some of it would be fairly easy, and you could probably cover it in 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, so next off, we want to talk about the attributes, okay? And this is what I meant earlier when I was talking about the different kinds of parameters you were seeing earlier. So some of them were sources, some of them were multipliers, and the difference between a source and a multiplier is the source is the raw attack or the raw value, and the multiplier is what either increases or decreases these sources. Okay, and when I say increases or decreases, it does it by multiplying it, as the name connotes or the name dictates. So, anyways, for sources, mainly there will be two sources. Sorry, two subtypes of sources. One is a positive and one is a negative source. Um, the positive sources increases your damage, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory. One of it is the attack. So basically, this is the attack you get from your character job growth. So as you level up, or as your character progresses, even without gears, I know you've noticed this, even without gears, even without allocating stats on it or SER runes, your attack actually increases depending on your job. So that's what I'm referring to here. Also, the attack that you get from gears, from cards, from enchantments, that's also part of attack. Um, and then the attack you get from your journal bonuses. So those unlocks you do with your headgears, with your cards, with the furniture, the achievements. Also, the attack notes you get from Esir, the Esir grid, and the attack you get from the advanced runes or the adventure runes or advanced runes. I'm not sure what it's actually called, but it's mainly this one. Let me get that real quick. So that's mainly the grid, the S runes, so the smaller ones, which gives attack. So yeah. Anyways, next off is base attack, and the base attack is the attack you get from putting in something in strength, dex, and luck. Now I want to go back there real quick. Let me zoom in. Oops. So if you look here, the base attack is actually strength times 2 plus math floor. Math floor is nothing but rounding down. So, well, not exactly rounding down, but it's rounding down so that there are no decimal points. So math floor of strength multiplied by strength over 100 plus dex over 5 plus luck over 5. So this changes, if your character is using bow. So strength becomes dex and vice versa. For magic casters, instead of base attack, it will become base magic attack, which is just int. So anyways, this base attack, so this is basically the attack you earn as you put stats into strength. If you're melee, you're using melee weapon, or if you're using ranged weapon, so that's gonna be dexterity. Okay. So yeah, going back to sources. So the next source is the refine attack. So the refine attack is what you get, from refining your gears. So Hologram and Prontera. Also, you can get some refine attack from unlocking or crafting some headgears, maybe picking up some cards. You can also get refined attack from a card, which is I think is Valkyrie, Brandgris. Yeah, I think. And then there are other flat bonuses which are really more. They're not always there, or maybe they're rare bonuses. So one example would be kind of like the true damage that you get from monoculars. So that's another flat bonus. It is subject to certain modifiers, but not to a lot of modifiers. Um, Also, the normal attack that you get from sword mastery, or maybe some of the Aesir nodes from the swordsman class. So those are also classified under other flat bonuses. To be honest, there are a lot of flat bonuses. It's just there's too many of them to really discuss in the video. So we'll just leave it at that. There's also a negative source in the damage formula, which is VIT. The enemy's VIT, to be specific. Um, if you go here, scroll. If you go here, this part, so you see VIT 2 multiplied by 1 plus VIT per 2. So what this simply means is the enemy's total VIT gets reduced from your damage. So there's a flat value. So if they have 300 VIT, so at the end of your damage computation here, the damage gets reduced by about 300. It's very minimal if you do PvP. Um, if you're kind of like in an end game, this is very minimal, and you probably won't even notice this. But during early game, if you're a tank class and you put in stuff in VIT, this is actually one of the reasons why you see there's a very big difference in your survivability during early game, because a lot of the pourings, the chonchons, those early mobs, they do very less damage. So that when you subtract like 50 points of damage from their damage, then it's actually a big deal. But once you actually reach higher levels and higher gears and higher enemies, then this will matter very little. Okay, let me move on then. So yeah, going back to sources. Next off would be the multipliers, and this is where there's actually a lot. I mean, and the game really keeps on adding multipliers. Um, one day we see X number of multipliers. Maybe after a major patch, we see some new multipliers. So the first one is the attack percent or attack per. You kind of see this, and this is a mistranslation in the Seiya client. If you go into status, you actually see this as damage percent, which is actually incorrect. It's attack. So this is the same as what you get from the sharp blade enchant. So, but that's just for melee, but it's the same value. It's attack percent. This is also what's given by the I think it's a cat ear beret. One of the favorite headgears of early players. There's shape correction. Shape correction is nothing but the size penalty. Sorry, the penalty of your weapon versus the target size. So if you're using a dagger, you actually deal 100% damage on small monsters, but you deal less damage. And sorry, I forgot the exact value, but you deal less damage on medium and large. So every weapon kind of has that chart. It's within the game. You can actually check it. So every weapon has that chart, and you kind of can just check. Okay, um, this can be negated, or the value of this can be brought up to 100% via using Drake card, or the I think it's called weapon perfection. That's a skill from the blacksmith class, and also eating some alloys. I think it's a precision alloys that you can use. Next up is element param or element parameter. So there are two of this actually. So there are two types of this. So one is just element param and one is element param 2. They're mostly present in most of the computations. So element param is nothing but the element versus element ratio. So fire versus earth, fire versus water, holy versus shadow. So that's mostly that, plus the percent damage to element. Okay, and this is a bit tricky, and I can't explain this here right now because we need specific examples. But sometimes you would see some cards that says, percent damage to fire element, right? So that's where it goes, element param. Um, Element param 2 is the plus percent element damage, so that's kind of like the um, plus percent fire damage or plus percent water damage, and the minus percent damage from element. So that's kind of like the 20% less damage from fire, 20% less damage from earth. So these two, element param and element param 2, so they don't actually add up. So they're multiplicatives to one another. So basically what's happening is, say for example, you're using fire armor. Someone attacks you with fire. So we all know that the reduction of that would be 75%. That doesn't mean that if you have 25% less damage from fire, it means that it would be zeroed out. No, because the first part, which is the fire versus fire, it goes in element param here. The second part, which is 25% less damage from fire, goes into element param 2. So that's why it doesn't zero out. For magic, it's a little bit different. Okay, and this is also one of the reasons why some of those percent damage to element doesn't work on magic attacks, because element param, this first one, doesn't exist in magic attacks. Instead, there's a separate modifier at the end, which is for element restrain, which is mainly the element versus element ratio. So I know it's a little bit confusing, but we'll get there eventually. Maybe in the future, if I have some time, I'll create a video about it. But moving on, we have race param, which is a race modifier. And then we have boss param, which is a boss modifier. So race is nothing but those plus damage to a certain race or less damage from a certain race. And, boss param is, something similar, but more on the MVP and mini. So you'd see Abysmal Knife card, right? So this is where it goes. Boss Param 2 is actually a combination of multiple things. Actually, I'm not even sure why they named it Boss Param 2. Maybe because when they first created it, that's where the less damage from bosses go. But as the game progressed, they actually added a couple of other stuff there. Like you'd see some cards wherein it gives like damage to or damage from PvP or GVG reduced by X%. So this is where it goes. Also, the damage to and damage from normal monsters kind of goes here in Boss Param 2 as well. So, yep. And then you have def reduction. There's nothing but the reduction from defense, and this is a big topic which we kind of need a separate video on, probably with multiple episodes, because def is probably one of the I would say as someone who has played a lot of MMORPGs in the past, the way RO implemented def is just brilliant. I think personally, I like the way the def mechanics works, because this element here makes it very difficult to really have a Swiss knife build, to have a build that works everywhere. The way they implemented def made it really complex to make a build that works in any situation. So yeah, it's a big topic, but it's a good one. And then there's damage reduction. This is for the damage reduction. You get it from tenacity enchants. You also get that from the regular enchants that you do with Mora. Um, Also, penetration goes here. Damage reduction and penetration kind of negates one another, so they're kind of tugging along, each other. Dam change per is nothing but the skill damage modifier. This is different. Okay, this is different from the skill damage that you see, like the Norma Unicorn headgear. This is just the modifier from the skill itself. Like for example, Bash gives at level 10 gives 200 or 250%. So this is it. And then there's refined damage reduction. This is from the refinement of your armors, so it reduces the damage as well. Dam increase or damage increase, or a lot of people refer to this as PDI. It's short for physical damage increase. So it's also a modifier here, a multiplier. Short range damage reduction or long range damage reduction, which is its counterpart for the long range skills, is also a multiplier. And then you have Vit per 2 or vitality percent. There's nothing in the game yet, as far as I know. There's nothing yet that uses this value, but just so you know, this is something that multiplies the negative source here, Vit 2. And then there are others like final damage multiplier, there's skill damage multiplier, there's auto attack multiplier from Zeal enchants. There are higher level multipliers, and I don't think I will get the chance to talk about them today because they probably need a separate topic because of the length and complexity as well. So we're just gonna go there some other time. So what does this mean? I mean, we've all talked about this, and it's kind of getting boring, right? We all talk about this, but what does this mean to us? So I created a couple of pointers to kind of summarize what all of this means. So the first one is sources and multipliers are equally important. Just imagine this. All of those multipliers you've seen, they're actually just multiplying the sources. This side here just multiplies this. So if the value of this is very low, then it doesn't matter how high your percentage here is. You'll still come out short. You actually will see this a lot from players who actually started late, and then found some way to get easy semi, and then they started buying their gears, right? And as you know, majority of the gears would probably give you multipliers rather than sources. Of course, they would still have some sources, but the main focus of most of the gears, most of the cards that we use are really multipliers. So it doesn't matter how high your multipliers are. If your sources are abysmally low, then your damage will still come out short. Okay, so they're equally important, and you have to balance them, and that's the reason why, as you work in your gears, okay, as you try to get those sharp blade enchants, as you try to get those PDI enchants, you also have to work on your journal, your handbook, your Essir, your enhance. You also have to work on your God Anvil. So those things are those bonuses, those sources, those bonuses to sources that actually gives you the needed boost in your sources without actually affecting your build. So that's why having good investment into your journal, investing into contributions and gold medals is really important because all of those attack nodes that you can get from there are very important into raising your stats. Because if you don't invest into your journal, then if you really want to balance it out, then you would have to sacrifice some of your multipliers in your gears or cards to be able to catch up in resources, which is a very stupid thing to do, to be honest. Okay, I really wouldn't want to replace a card that gives me a percent multiplier with plus 50 attack, something like that. I mean, that's just not feasible. Second, spread out your multipliers if possible. And I'm saying if possible because sometimes you just have to deal with the cards you're dealt, right? I mean, not everyone has the luxury to really have everything. and then just use which is the best. If you're one of those, then yeah, spread them out. Okay. Um, if not, then you choose what you have. Okay. I mean, you use what you have. But once you get to a point where you can spread it out, then my suggestion is to spread it out. And if you're going to ask me why, it's actually pretty simple. It's because of the operation itself. If we go back here, and it's a little bit small, but if we go back here, you see that these are successive multiplications. And when you deal with successive multiplications, and we're going to have an example later on, you actually get a higher value when all of those containers are higher. Sorry, that doesn't make sense. You actually get a higher value if you spread out the values across the containers rather than focusing on one container. So what I'm trying to say is, in a way, it looks like each container would have a diminishing return, but mathematically, really, it's not. Okay, def has diminishing return. The formula itself for def, if you look at it, would already tell you it has diminishing returns. But for these multipliers, it just seems like they're diminishing returns because we're comparing adjusted value versus adjusted value. So it's a whole lot of topic, but if you're comfortable with calling it diminishing return, then that's fine. Okay, mathematically it's not, but you're not gonna get jailed for that, so that's totally fine. But anyways, the key thought behind that is you spread them out, and kind of this is a basic example, and I've taken this out from a children's book. So basically, we'll use little Timmy and his 5 beats as an example. So little Timmy has $100 and 5 beats. His mom, dad, and grandma told him that they will each give him 10% of what he currently has for every beat he gives them. Okay, so how should little Timmy best distribute the beats to get the most money out of his relatives? Okay, and yeah, there's a typo here. It should be has rather than have. My apologies for that. Um, Anyways, so let's say for example this is dad, this is mom, and this is grandma. If little Timmy gives all of his beads to dad, then what's going to happen is his $100 gets multiplied by 1.5, which is 50%, and then multiplied by 1 and then by 1 because he didn't give anything to mom and grandma. So that would result into 150. So yeah, that's probably okay. Second example is what if he gives 3 to dad and then 2 to mom and then none to grandma? So that would result into 100 multiplied by 1.3 multiplied by 1.2 multiplied by 1. You can follow along in your calculators, but that's going to result into about 156. Now the last example, which is actually the best way to divide it, is giving 2 to 2 of them and then 1 to grandma. And to be honest, it doesn't matter which order you do it. Um, so the way it's going to look like is 100 multiplied by 1.2 multiplied by 1.2 multiplied by 1.1, which is 158.4. Now, if you try to reverse that, and give me a second, let me just do it quickly on the calculator. So even if you try to reverse that, say for example, you just gave 1 to dad and then 2 to mom and grandma, it's still going to give you the same result. Okay, so as long as you spread out as you can. Okay, not saying this how it will always work in the damage formula. This is an oversimplification, and we're gonna get there later. But some multipliers are just way better than others. Okay, so sometimes the result may vary, but this is a general concept. Okay, so if you're ever stuck choosing between 2 enchants and you want to get the most out of your damage, you just try to reflect on what you currently have, try to see which one you have the least, and then that's probably what you have to kind of work on. Okay, next off, some multipliers are better than others. And I'm not sure if you noticed this earlier, but here's the reason. Let me zoom in. So if I zoom in here, you'd see I have attack here, right? So there's attack, and then base attack gets reduced from it. So which means that attack percent actually just multiplies your attack minus the attack you get from your stats. Okay, which means in a way, attack percent and then the shape correction, which is the weapon versus size penalty, and then the body param, and I think I forgot to discuss this earlier, but body param is nothing but, the percent damage or less damage from a certain size. And an element param 2, these are probably the lowest multipliers. These are the weakest multipliers. And it makes sense because they're also the most common ones. That's because they only multiply your attack less the attack you get from the stats. Now, if you look here, there's a plus, right? So that's where the attack from your stats gets added back into the formula. And here, these multipliers, race, boss param 2, actually includes that. So which means if at the same percentage, okay, if we're talking about the same percentage, 1:1 comparison, then race is better than element or size. That's because element does not amplify the attack you get from the stats, while race and boss does. Okay? Of course, it may vary because sometimes, what if it's 25% versus 10%, right? So it's a higher number. I mean, it's more than twice of what the race value is gonna multiply it with. So there's a big chance that it may be better. And these are some of the scenarios where you probably would have to do some testing, and any knowledge on how to compute it would probably be not so efficient anymore because you end up still spending for those two. But yeah, in certain scenarios, it may be higher because you basically have higher values in size, like minerals, right? That's 25% right away. But yeah, if you do know the formula like this, you can quickly plot it in Excel, and then you can do the math. And then roughly whichever gives you the higher output, it would probably, be the ones you have to pick. Next off, so once you have your attack final, it goes through another set of multiplications. And here's where you see refine, another source, right? So the refine, as you can see, is not affected by any of these. That's why, especially during early games or maybe even now, you kind of feel like refine attack isn't so useful because I'm dealing X damage now after I've gained like 100 refined attack. It just increased it by very little. And that's because refine attack isn't multiplied by any of the common multipliers you have, right? So we call these the poor man's multipliers. These are the common ones that you get. So it's not affected by that. So that's why you see very little movement because your majority of investment is here in these multipliers. But refine attack gets affected or multiplied by the skill multiplier. Okay, and then of course refine damage reduction also reduces it. Okay, it's a multiplier here too. It also gets affected or multiplied by damage increase or PDI. So in a way, refine attack refine attack can either be good or bad for you because if you do high level PvP or it's a very competitive PvP, then sometimes all of the reductions from here are just so abysmally high, right? Especially when you're fighting Divine Avengers, the reduction from death is just insanely high. And then you also see some Divine Avengers who have probably about 90% or 100% damage reduction. So that's where Refine actually kicks in, right? Because the attack you get from Refine isn't affected by those things. Okay, so that's really the reason why some multipliers are better than others. I guess the way you would say it, or the way you could put it, is a multiplier is better if it affects more sources. Okay, but of course, the more sources it affects, the rarer it becomes, I would say, like final damage multipliers, right? The Wind Perch Drake or the Whale. So those are final damage multipliers. Lord of Death card, those are final damage multipliers, and they're rarer in a sense. You can't get so much of them, but they actually affect all of the sources that we've discussed, which makes them the top tier multipliers. There's another multiplier just below um, final damage multiplier, which is the auto attack or normal attack multiplier, or the skill attack, skill damage multiplier. This is the one that's being given by the monoculars gotcha, Norma Unicorn, so those things. So that's just really in second in comparison to final damage multiplier. Um, and then, there's also one which is kind of situational, just below. So final damage multiplier, and then um, you do have your uh, auto attack or skill damage multiplier, and then you have one which is a conditional, which is the status damage multiplier, which actually is it's kind of like those that says deals 10% more damage to enemies that are stunned, or 10% more damage to enemies under poison status. So that's just a little bit below. Okay, don't get confused between this one and the Lord of Death card, because Lord of Death card has been specifically coded to be included in final damage multiplier and not in the status damage. But yeah, so those are the other multipliers that I'm unable to discuss here right now because of the length. Actually, this whole video is about 14 minutes long now, which is, I think, again, no one will watch because it's too long. So I'll probably have to end up, kind of cutting this in the middle, or maybe in three parts. I don't know. Whenever I make a video, I end up speaking too much, and it just ends up being too damn long that no one watches it. Okay. So again, why? And I think we've answered that already. But in simple terms, and this is why we were taught math in elementary school and in high school, it's because of PEMDAS. So PEMDAS is nothing but the correct order of your arithmetic operations. So whenever you see a long formula, um, you actually don't just go left to right. I mean, left to right is the direction, but you have to take these into considerations. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and then subtraction. So that's what PEMDAS stands for, which means first you have to clear the parentheses. If you go back here, this formula here has lots of parentheses. So the first thing everyone has to do is to clear the parentheses so that it comes to a point where there are no more parentheses. Which means I have to compute for this first, compute for this first. So basically clear all of those parentheses. And then exponents. Luckily, there are no exponents in the game yet. I don't know if there will be one in the future. And then next on, we can do away with multiplication. And then division, and then addition. So the game just uses multiplication. Okay, there will be division here, like you see, luck over 5. In most of the times, the game tries to express division by multiplying into decimals, which may not work at all times, or which may work at a lot of times. But anyways, it's really up to the programmer or developer. But yeah, so this is really the reason why some multipliers are better than others, because PEMDAS dictates that you have to clear stuff first before a certain operation can be executed, like plus, right? We all know, based on PEMDAS again, that plus or addition happens after multiplication. Okay, which means that in this sense here, these multiplications here doesn't affect this. Because, one is, it's a plus after the sequence of operations. And if you try to do it on Excel, it's going to be a lot easier. You just plot this into Excel and then you try to do the computation, but you basically should be able to understand it from there. So yeah, it's actually the reason why. So PEMDAS, um, it's an old term from way back in school. Okay, so yeah, I think that's it. That's really it for today. I really wanted to talk about, kind of just give everyone an overview of kind of how it works. This is just an introduction. You probably will not be able to make a lot of use for this for now, but what I'm gonna do in the future as I, get more time is I'm gonna talk about some of the multipliers, some of the some of the skills themselves, and maybe I try not to have a specific presentation, but just mainly do it on the fly as we talk. Um, Yeah, so maybe you can let me know in the comments below. It will also be great if you can subscribe to the channel. Um, I have no intention of really doing YouTube full time. This is just something I do for fun when I have some free time. So, but I mean, if you subscribe, you get updates if I post any new videos explaining stuff. So if you feel like it, just feel free to subscribe. If not, then it's fine. Just visit the videos every now and then. But yeah, I'll do a couple of more videos later. I'll try to talk about specific skills. Could be anything under the sun for RO. If there's anything that's kind of bothering you, if there's a particular card you don't quite understand, and you kind of want to have an explanation about it, just let me know. Maybe it's not something that's worth it to create a video. Maybe we can just talk about it in Discord. So yeah, if you're in the Discord group, just feel free to ping me or to mention me. I will try to respond to you once I'm free. So again, thanks everyone for watching. It's a pretty long video. I I swear to God, I always wanted to make short videos that are meaningful, that make sense. But I don't know what's happening. It's almost 50 minutes again. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm just blabbering too much. So I'll try to cut this. I'll try to segment the videos into 15 minutes each. Hopefully you'd watch it then. I'll upload it in YouTube. So thanks again. Thanks everyone.